Good afternoon. At least it's afternoon here where I am. Um, Thank you for being here. This is Sat Sangat, astrologer, and I am today here to talk about the lunations. And I'm going to start with the new moon in Aquarius and go through to talk about the full moon in Leo that is upcoming February 9th, 2020 at 1:30 approximately here in Texas, and it's 7:30 UTC. So you need to find out the exact time, right, for your location. You can go to let's see. The website where you can find time at your location is timeanddate.com. There you have a page where you can convert your time and you find out the time of the lunation. There's plenty of astronomical information also in that website that is very interesting. Hello, it's been handful, right? This month, events of all kinds, unexpected, most of them, and very explosive and eruptive. I wanted to do the video on the new moon in Aquarius, but it was impossible. I had lots of work and I wasn't able to do that. But I'm here to do kind of a summary. You know, the new moon in Aquarius happened at 4 degrees 22 minutes of Aquarius, and it was the sun and moon were near Mercury in Aquarius. And the exact degree was the degree of the Aquarius lunar eclipse in July 27, 2018. Even though that eclipse was 2 years ago or so, let's see, one and a half years ago, the importance of the eclipses is that they may last for a long, long time, and their consequences or effects or impact kind of pile up one after the other. So you might remember events that happened at that time, and now there is something else that come in related to what happened then. In the same way, this lunation is also this is the new moon. So the moon is square Uranus earlier in the day, right? And the thing is that the moon and the sun were squaring Uranus, and we have seen so many events that were erupted. At least in my life, I had all kinds of unexpected things that happen. We can count the several earthquakes that happened in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and other places, but there were also eruptions, volcanic eruptions in the Philippines, and I think somewhere else, but things that were really unexpected. And let's also mention the outbreak of this new virus that is affecting so many people, and even more than the number that is officially recognized, you know. So this is a very unfortunate event. I think in part is related to the conjunction in Capricorn, but it's mainly, if you take a look at the chart, it will be in as a thumbnail of this video. in the month of September, Jupiter was square Neptune for the third time, which is the strongest because it comes back and forth. And the third time that the aspect is formed is the strongest. And it seems like there was the start of this illness started around September, October, and the first cases that were not reported officially happened in November. So I associate this illness with this square Jupiter Neptune, and let me explain why. Jupiter is expanding everything to the maximum degree, and Neptune is the lack of boundaries of all kinds, right? It would be dissolution of frontiers and divisions between countries, but it could also be the fact that it debilitates or dissolves the aura around the body. It also is associated, Neptune in Pisces is associated with the immune system. So there is a great debilitation of the immune system in allowing all kinds of pathogens and germs, right, to invade the body. In the same way, we can have also a propensity to be absorbing energies that are foreign, right, into our energy field. So this is it's a transit of much vulnerability for our physical bodies and our energetic bodies as well. So it's advisable to have spiritual practices in order to strengthen the energy field. So we have protection, energy protection, and we also build the immune system, right? The aura, once the aura is strong, then the immune system is also strong. So as I said, Neptune is associated with all kinds of illnesses, right? It's associated with hidden enemies, which is the pathogens are not visible, so they are hidden enemies. It's also associated with hospitals and all kinds of healing, but also with illnesses. So, and Jupiter, as I mentioned before, expands everything. So it might take pandemic proportions. We don't know now at this point, we don't know, but it has that potential. So there's no need to be scared, but you need to be well informed. I advise people to get the correct information, right? Scientific and medical information that is correct in order to protect yourself and wherever you are. But also, it is very important to build the lymphatic system. Kundalini yoga practice has a very good kriyas or sets of exercises that empower the lymphatic system and can help you to be strong and have a good defense. So as I said, there's no need to be scared. There is need to be well informed and also to take appropriate precautions, right? So I can talk a little bit more at another time about this topic, but we should take this very seriously. It's really a thing that can be very important in many ways in the next few months, because it is spreading very fast. Another thing that I predicted was with the when I wrote about the conjunction in Capricorn, I predicted about the restrictions in travel. So that's something to be expected in the future if this illness goes across frontiers, borders. So restrictions or constraints, for example, if you travel from one country to another, there could be the possibility that they ask you to quarantine, and you need to stay for some time. And this is not something new. It happened in the old age, when people were sick, and there were stations at the border with hospitals and places where people was held to wait for a certain amount of days in order to protect the population in general. Well, so that's another possibility. And some countries may close their borders. So there are all kinds of implications that we need to consider. As I said, I will talk more about this. I encourage you not to be afraid, but take it in a practical way. Prepare yourself practically. I've been also writing the need to have enough food, water, and medicine and storage at home, and some cash money. So in case there is scarcity, or there are more serious events that don't allow us to have access to that. So it is important to have at least 3 months of supplies for the whole family. So if you can do that, do it, because it might save your life. So okay, so what else I wanted to say about the new moon in Aquarius? I think I mentioned everything. Mars is the problem here, because it is in, let me see if I can find image of that. I need to take a look at the chart so I can see what's. Let me open here. Bear with me just a second. I have it here. Okay, so Mars was in January 24th at 15 degrees, squaring Neptune. And again, for this particular thing, the coronavirus, Mars was activating the last Jupiter-Neptune square, where in the same degrees that they square, now Mars was square in at the time of the new moon in Aquarius. And what else does Mars bring? Well, Mars is all kinds of illnesses also. It's Mars is fevers and inflammations, and again in Sagittarius is aggravation and expansion of that. And Neptune is in Pisces. For example, one of the main symptoms that in fact provoke the death of people is the retention of water inside the lungs, and that's typical Neptune in Pisces. So that's from the new moon in Aquarius, right? I hope everything was okay with you. But as I said, in my life, it happened to have several unexpected things. You need to take a look at the house where Aquarius is, and that's where mainly where the unexpected things took place. For me, it was the sixth house, which is the house of daily schedules, activities, health. Fortunately, I don't have a health problem, a serious health problem, but I don't know. The moon cycle hasn't ended yet. So, and the other thing is in the sixth house, the scheduling and work, right? And I had several different unexpected events related to work and scheduling, especially. So I think that's all I wanted to mention about that in the new moon in Aquarius. And I encourage you to read, since the moon cycle hasn't ended yet, it's still relevant for you to read about it. And you can go to my blog and read in detail about that. So now we are getting ready for the full moon in Leo. And the full moon in Leo is activating another eclipse that happened August 11th, 2018. That eclipse was about 19 degrees of Leo, and is the also the culmination of the cycle that's started with a new moon in Leo, August 1st, 2019. So if you remember what was going on at that time, something else is happening related to the same thing. So the moon in Leo is warmth, is creativity, joy, generosity, all those feelings that recognition, appreciation, right? People are more magnanimous because Leo is the sign of the kings and the royalty, right? So this full moon can make you feel really important and radiant and joyful. And it's also the sign of leadership. So remember, the moon is your moods, your emotions, and you may be feeling playful and dramatic, and but in any case, it's emotions that have this yang energy or outgoing energy, and this energy of coming out of yourself in order to be creative. And it's the sign of party and joy. So I hope you have the chance to enjoy. On the other side, because the full moon is always an opposition between the sun and the moon, on the other side, the sun is in Aquarius, which is the sign of friends and everybody at the same level, right? But it's also innovative and rebellious, and it wants freedom and wants to do things out of the box, out of the norms. So it's also trendy and very independent. So your some examples that I was thinking about was that you can organize a group activity that, for example, to fundraise some cause or some create a generous collective thing in order to help a cause or something like that. Also, Leo is the performer, right? Leo is the one that goes on stage and shows off. So that's another possibility. For example, a performing art event that you organize. For example, it could be online, it could be a video online or something with non-conventional ideas, right? Because Aquarius sun is very, as I said, trendy and kind of revolutionary, right? And it also is the use of the internet in order to go through to the masses and reach everybody. So it's very liberal in their manifestation, and it's also it also talks about teamwork. So organizing groups or activities, group activities that have to do with a cause. For example, there could be protests, more protests than before, in order to demand equality, right? Because those are themes that are very Aquarian themes. So you can also lead a party with friends where each one shares something that's very unique or unpredictable, right? You can just throw a party out of nowhere. So it's a very festive full moon, and it has very playful vibes. So use it because these times are difficult and hard, but you don't need to be sad or worried or stressed out, because if you have the chance to enjoy your life, why not, right? And at the same time, you can use your positive attitude in order to inspire others. So that's very Leo Aquarius also. You can be you can take leadership in order to inspire others. So the sun in Aquarius is also very objective. It takes things in a detached way. So and that light of the sun is reflected on the moon. So the moon is taking all that energy, and what we need to do is to balance both the detachment with the creativity, and the rebellion with the leadership, right? So it's very important that we understand these opposites, this axis of polarity, in order for us to balance them, to learn how to work both at the same time. So let's see. Now, let me take a look at the chart also. I don't need this one anymore. Okay, so the full moon happens then, as I said, 1:30 a.m. here where I live, 7:30 a.m. in Greenwich, which is UTC, Universal Time. And other than this opposition between the moon and the sun, there is a couple of other aspects that I need to mention. One of them is that Venus is conjunct Chiron. So this is a little bit difficult because there is this need of affection and need of social connection with other people. And that's Venus, and Venus in Aries, which is outgoing, and she goes and wants to get this connection and this social contact with other people, and there is this deep a need to achieve that, but at the same time, with Chiron in the picture in Aries, there are those feelings of not being able to make that social contact or connection, this intimate connection. And there is this sense of separation or inability to establish relationships that may be hurting, right? That sense that I am not part of it, I don't belong, I'm not good enough to be there. But there is also with Venus, there's always this opportunity for healing. So if you feel that you are unable to feel loved, you feel unlovable or undeserving love, this is Chiron is the antenna that attracts same alike. So, and this in order to for you to have the opportunity of healing. So and you will be very receptive of the emotions of other people, and especially those who are in need of healing, right? So you may find yourself in a place that you can help other people with this joy of the moon in Leo, inspire others and help them feel better. So uh, you will also feel much empathy. That's typical of Venus conjunct Chiron, much empathy and compassion. So because Venus, in with Chiron is like more like Neptune, the unconditional love, the compassion, and the concern for the pains or suffering of other people. So it also semi-sextile Uranus, which is in the solutions will be unconventional. So you will find ways to cope with this that are out of the norm, and there are different ways of energetic feeling, healing. Pardon, ways of healing in a social context. And you may want to read my in my blog. I wrote a whole article about this semi-sextile between Chiron and Uranus, which will be going on for a long time, since last year, and it will last for they seem to be moving almost at the same speed. So even though it's not always exact, but it's within a very tight orb, and it's very curious how this works. So another aspect is the sextile between Jupiter in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces. So this makes for a bigger the possibility of a bigger vulnerability to pathogens. So some people see this as positive because it's just a sextile, but at the same time, you need to consider the situation. And so the possibility could be for also much spiritual growth, people coming towards spiritual practices in order to receive healing or in order to feel safer, right? There are many people who in times of strife and in times of adversity turn to God or to their religion or spiritual practice. So this is another way this sextile shows. I encourage you also to visit my Instagram or my Facebook page, where I post daily in very more detail about each of the aspects that happen every day. So I don't have too much time to spend here, but that was just a summary of these aspects. Another aspect that is present is the semi-sextile between Mars in Sagittarius, which is at 25 degrees, to Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn is swifting the last degrees of Capricorn. So it means that he's getting ready to wrap up the theme of his transit in Capricorn, which is a transit of demanding maturation, demanding that we take responsibility and that we live in integrity, right? And the conjunction with Pluto had brought out much of the lack of integrity and the lack of responsibility and the lack of maturity in our behavior, right? So now we, at the end of the cycle, which is not actually totally the end, because in March, Saturn will ingress in Aquarius, and then it will station there, and it will go retrograde, and it will come back to 25, approximately this same degree where Saturn is in the chart of the full moon in Leo. So this is a crucial moment, because whatever happens, Saturn will come back. So there is, we will be reviewing whatever happens during this full moon time later on when Saturn comes back. So this calls for, this semi-sextile calls for action, right? But it's an action that is restrained. So we want to do things, but we are constrained by something or someone. It also could be that burdens are put on us in order for us to take responsibility. So also it is Mars and Saturn in semi-sextile are talking about growing up and taking responsibility, being mature in our actions, how we do things. So we may need to take other people's responsibilities upon us in things that we don't like to do, but we have to do them. We can be in a situation of taking these responsibilities without being prepared, right? Like a child that needs to grow up before its time. Also, there is this aspect between Mars and Saturn demands the control of our passions and the control of our willpower, our sexual energy, and the ability to act. So also it could give passive aggression or the need to bottle up, you bottle up your anger until you can't hold it anymore. And so those are the possibilities of this aspect. That's why it's important to take it into account. So I need to point out that this conjunction between Saturn and Pluto was very heavy on the whole humanity, and individually also in each one of us. And why? Because we haven't been responsible. We haven't been mature enough to realize that whatever we are doing is damaging not only the planet, or having an impact on the climate, but also one of the things that we need to consider is that not only our actions have an impact on the environment and on other people, but our thinking. Thoughts are energy, and thoughts are, electricity in the mind, and electricity is energy. So, whatever you think, you are giving that energy to your environment. You are projecting that energy onto whatever you are around or not, right? Is energy that travels through the space. So if your thinking is not in harmony with nature, with the cosmos, with the cosmic energy, it will disrupt the environment, right? If you hate, for example, it's not that you say, oh, I hate this or that. You're sending those vibes even with your thoughts. So it's very important to become aware that not only our actions are sometimes detrimental, but our thinking, whatever we think. So, and regarding the actions, I think it's time for us to realize the ways we eat, the ways we cultivation, the industrial production of meat, or any kind of food, grains or whatever. It's not only the fault of those people that grow it in very unsustainable conditions, but it's also us. If we don't buy it, they won't produce it because they won't have the money, right? So it's each and every one of us who needs to become aware that the things that are wrong are wrong. And those things that we are doing wrong, this is a time that when nature and the cosmos is saying no more. We need to change those ways. We need to understand that whatever we are doing against nature, we are doing against ourselves. So the blunt example is this illness. I was investigating a little bit more, and apparently in that city where it started, there are open markets where the sanity and the hygiene is non-existent, and people eat also kind of meats that it's for us in Western world is alternative, different kinds of animals that we normally don't eat in the West. And those meats are exposed to the air for long periods, and people go and buy them, and there's water, and blood splashed everywhere. I read that on NPR. There is an article that I posted a copy on my Facebook page if you'd like to read it. So sanitary conditions are not appropriate. We're not appropriate there. I don't know if something changed, but in any case, we need to consider habits that we may have. For example, where we put the trash. Do we wash our hands? Do we keep a good hygiene at home and outside the home? How do we go, for example, to places to eat where there is a good sanitation? How we buy our food? Are we aware of the quality of the food, and etc.? Right. So there is this is a time for us to become aware and change. So what else? Oh, there is something very interesting about Jupiter at 15 degrees. It's opposite its own north node. No, pardon. It's opposite the north node of Uranus, which is at 15 degrees 33 Gemini. So Jupiter is opposing the north node of Uranus. It means that it's whatever is happening in Jupiter in Capricorn, right? Let me see. I'm saying whatever. Sorry. Let me take a look at the chart. Jupiter. No, that's a mistake. I'm sorry. That's a mistake. Sorry. Because Jupiter is in Capricorn, is not in Sagittarius. That was the confusion. I think I got confused. So Mercury is entering pretty soon. I think tomorrow, 2 or 3rd, is entering Pisces. And what happens when Mercury enters Pisces, astrologers say that it is a detriment, because Pisces is not logical. Pisces is more spiritual and intuitive, whereas Mercury is logic and intellectual and reason, right? And it's also information, whereas Neptune is cloudy, foggy. We don't really know what's going on, right? And Mercury is the messenger. So now Mercury will be the messenger of spiritual things, the spiritual realm. So we will be thinking more in terms of spirituality, and our thinking will be more connected to our intuition. So it will be in detriment of logic, but at the same time, we might receive revelations that are not understandable, but they are very important, and there is no other way to learn those things. So it also is helpful for creative writing. People who use writing, or who reads, or who creates, for example, people who write scripts for theater or for movies or plays, that's a very good Mercury, right? And it's also imaginative. So not practical at all, as I said. You may be also distracted and confused, questioning, is this real? Is this not real? And also it's a good time for misleading information, for communication that is either intentional or unintentional, confusing and distracting. Time for lies, and also big lies, right? Neptune expands everywhere. It has no limits for its expansion. And also, if there are no complete lies, it could be that some parts of the truth are hidden or unavailable. I think those are the most important aspects. Pluto continues its work now at 23 degrees. Oh, one more note on Mercury. Mercury enters the shadow. Um, Mercury is already in the shadow of the retrograde space, right? Because the retrograde will start at 12 degrees and Mercury will go back to 28 degrees of Aquarius. So Mercury is already in, as we speak, is already in the shadow. What does that mean? Well, it means that whatever happens right now, what information you receive right now or you give right now, it's up to review. To review, reconsider, study once more, go back to study some more. There is more details add to it, or there is something that it was wrong and has to be revised. Many astrologers say that don't sign contracts, don't travel, etc. Well, life continues, right? And what you need to do, you need to do. But it is advisable because it takes more time and more effort to for our minds in order to understand things, to learn things. So that implies that if you have to read something, you may have to read it 3 times in order to get it. If you, for example, sign a contract, you may have your advisor or someone else read very carefully the small print so you don't miss details. There are people who, for example, sign a contract to rent an apartment, right? And then they discover that there is a leak or there is something wrong that they haven't been told, or things that they have missed. For example, I don't know, they wanted to have a pet and they signed the lease, and then they remember that they had a pet, and pets are not allowed, or things that you can miss during the time of Mercury retrograde. As I said, you need to apply your mind 3 times more carefully in order to especially things that are intellectual, that you need a good logic and reasoning, right, to understand. That's the thing. If it is something that is more creative, it's actually good for that. But what else? The dates. Mercury is going retrograde 17th of February, and it will be turning direct March 9th. So it's a long period of retrograde, and then you need to wait some more up until the end of March in order for Mercury to come out of the shadow. So consider that from now on, today is February the 1st, just be careful about anything that has to do with thinking, writing, reading, and communication, that you look for the details. If you receive some information or a message, listen carefully, because you may miss something. Or if you read news, for example, take your time in order to double check and fact check, because it could be a lie, you know, or it could be something that is not correct. It could be a fake news. So, and with that, I think I have talked about everything that I wanted to share with you. I hope you enjoy this full moon in Leo. It's actually a good vibe to enjoy. You may want to share your joy with other people, because that's the sun in Aquarius, right? And also think about the future, not only of your life, but the generations to come. I think it's time for us to get the big picture, that whatever we are doing at a personal, local level, we are also affecting, like a domino effect, the world, other people, other cultures, in the future generations. So it's very important for us to uh, be responsible and be careful with the environment. Whatever the habits you have, there is a time to change. Otherwise, we will be forced to change. So events will come, and it's this year is going to be challenging for everybody. I can't say sweet words and nice words because it's not true. I wouldn't be honest if I tell you, oh, this is going to be a happy-go-lucky year. Well, no, this is a year for us to transform. The events that will happen will force us to transform and to change our habits, to change so many things in our lives. I hope you take it with responsibility and integrity, and you you put your sleeves up and you work on it. So much love to you, and hope that all will be well, and that each of us will do our part. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your comments. If you comment and share my video, I appreciate your following the channel, and also hitting the bell, so you can be notified when I come back live. As I said, I try to go twice a month with the lunations, but sometimes I can't. You can always read my blog, and I am daily on Facebook and Instagram. So until next time, thank you so much.